Welcome into episode 546 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. We have some Bruins hockey to get to from over the weekend. We have some Bruins hockey to preview this upcoming week. But first things first, and Scott, I apologize if this gets awkward for you as a bystander, but Bridget, are things going to get awkward between you and I?
I'm curious how or why.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, is Merrimack playing UMass in the semifinals?
Oh, yes. Did you
Okay.
watch my broadcast the other day?
No, I did. I did. That's why, and a great overtime goal call. But that's why it ignited that thought in my mind. Like, I hope things don't get awkward. And I feel like I may have just made them awkward now because clearly you weren't there was no animosity from you to start this episode. So I guess we're fine. We're cool. Okay. All right.
I mean, I don't think so. I don't think I get paid by the conference. This is my this is what I have to say. I don't root for anyone.
Okay. When that red light's off, I'll get your real feedback on that one. Scott has no terrier in the fight, so
yeah. I was gonna say, how come you didn't ask me? Oh, that's right, because BU stunk this year and didn't even get to the Garden, and their season's over well before the NCAA tournament.
We gotta dedicate one of these episodes, Scott, to you for like a therapy session. Just not a fun year for like what happened with these guys.
I mean, I've been covering them the whole year.
Enlighten me.
It was just I don't think they meshed when all was said and done. And I don't know if you heard Jay Pandolfo's post game after the season ended, and when they lost to UConn this weekend. But he was. I mean, I've never seen him like that before. He was very saying he needed to have done a better job, but I don't know. It was just an interesting season. I think they'll be better next year, but they did lose Cole Hutson already. He already signed with the Capitals. So almost lined up where he made his debut, he was 1 game off if it would have been against the Bruins. But and I assume Boisvert is signing at some point soon. I haven't seen that he signed yet, but he's going to go to Chicago. He turned into a polarizing player there. He
got himself scratched for the opening round of the Hockey East tournament. So that's always good when you're a first round pick and you get yourself scratched the week leading up to a playoff game. He was back for the quarterfinal, but they still lost to UConn. So yeah, I think to paraphrase Herb Brooks, I think this was a team that had leaned a little more towards having the most talented players and not the right players. Because they just did not come together. They were very young. They're the youngest team in the country by a lot. They only had 1 senior and it was a transfer. So I think trying to figure out a way to have like more leadership and more veteran experience would be good for them.
What was their senior's name?
Owen McLaughlin, but he does not pronounce his last name correctly, but that's all right.
So if it was pronounced McLaughlin,
that was also part of the problem for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say it would have changed everything. I mean, to tie the Hockey East playoffs quickly into the Bruins before opening shifts, it does feel like, guys, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if BC falls anything short of winning Hockey East, they won't qualify for the national tournament, and that means that if BC loses either Friday in the Hockey East semifinals or Saturday in the Hockey East finals, I would circle. So Bridget, you mentioned Cole Hutson signing with Washington. If James Hagens signs with the Bruins, I would circle next Tuesday against Toronto as a potential debut for James Hagens. So if BC loses Friday or Saturday and you want to hedge on, should I get tickets for the Bruins now before they maybe increase if Hagens signs? It's something to think about. I would circle that date.
Yeah, I think there might be like a Bridget, maybe you might know better, but I think there's like a very, very slim chance that if they get to the final and lose, they could still potentially get in, but it's like minuscule chance.
It's very small, and it also would depend on what happens with a bunch of other things. And they would need like 7 dominoes to fall for them to get it right. And I also am pretty sure there's going to be an upset in one of the tournaments already because was it Augustana lost? So
Quinnipiac lost. Quinnipiac got knocked out of the ECAC tournament.
Yeah, so that does not help that doesn't help. They needed the at-large team.
And Providence, of course, like another.
And Providence lost. But they needed the at-large teams, like the highest teams that were already going to make the tournament to win the conference tournaments. And that really, that messes things up for the bubble teams. But yeah, Providence is out. So they are not going to win the Hockey East tournament. They were 5th in the NPI. And now they've dropped since then, since they lost. But yeah, so BC
they will still make the NCAA tournament.
Not the best mojo.
I'm just saying that was the only team that was already expected from Hockey East to make it. So we know they're not gonna win the conference tournament. So that means, at least for BC, that means that team's out of the way. But it's not an easy path. We hadn't even talked about, because our last recording was Friday morning, but they beat Maine 5-0. Hagens scored 2 goals.
Yep.
It wasn't even, the game was never really a game because they scored 2 goals early, and that Maine just never got their game.
Yeah, James is leading Hockey East in scoring. He's 7th in the nation in points per game. So again, like, he's having a great season. So but we'll keep it to the here and now for the rest of the episode and stick with the Bruins. So Scott, why don't you kick us off with your opening shift?
Yeah, so Bruins get a 3-2 shootout win in Washington on Saturday. And Marcus Sturm made some pretty big changes to his forward lines, which we had been talking about, wondering if he would do. After we recorded on Friday, I went over to practice, and he had the same lines that he had used the previous game, that he had started the previous game with and had, really had stuck with for a while. So I asked him about that after practice. Why not change it? Why not stick with the lines that he ended Thursday's game with, which was having Fraser Minten up with Pasternak? And he said, don't read into it. I might still change things before Saturday. Haven't made up my mind yet. And sure enough, he did end up changing things for Saturday. So he had Minten center in the top line between Pasternak and Geekie, kept the second line the same, and then had a third line of Elias Lindholm between Tanner Jeannot and Marat Husnudinov. I think some change like this had to happen. It was definitely time, at the very least, to split up Pasternak and Lindholm, which had not been working. I would say produced mixed results for this game. That the new look top line was on the ice for Charlie McAvoy's first goal. McAvoy scored both goals in regulation. Minten ends up scoring the shootout winner in the 9th round. But I didn't think that line created a ton of chances. Didn't give up much either, but I think you probably are going to want to see more from that. And the third line, I actually thought the third line created a couple chances, but also ended up being on the ice for both goals against. One, Husnudinov goes for a bad change, basically just leaves his other 4 guys abandoned in the D zone, and it ends up being what would have been his defenseman gets open and scores. And then the second goal, Elias Lindholm inadvertently tips it past Swayman. So it was shot from the point, and he just had his stick out and tips off it. So, you probably want more from that line as well. So I'll be interested to see what Sturm does moving forward. I think it's worth giving these combinations another game, or at least keeping Minten with Pasternak, and keeping him split up from Elias Lindholm. But we'll see. It's not like it. It certainly didn't produce like immediate fireworks where it's like, wow, these new lines look great. There's some good, some bad, and now we'll see how it works going forward.
Are you surprised that he didn't just go to the kids line and decided to kind of like still spread it out? And instead of going to that, which had shown some flashes recently when they had a few one-off shifts together.
Well, not really, because I think the thinking there is, you have to get Morgan Geekie going. He still does not have a single 5-on-5 point since the Olympic break. And your best chance to get Morgan Geekie going is to have him with David Pasternak. So I get that. I get wanting to do that. And then I also think if you look down at the third line and it's Elias Lindholm and either in this case, it was Tanner Jeannot. It could have been Alex Steves or Mikey Asimont. Well, I feel like that line kind of needs someone to make things happen, and like Husnudinov can be that. So, I part of Marcus Sturm's answer when he was explaining the changes pregame was he said that putting Elias Lindholm with guys like Husnudinov and Jeannot, maybe it kind of brings something out of Lindholm and sort of reminds him of like where you need to go and like how you need to be better. And it's like, I get that. Like Husnudinov and Jeannot, those guys are going to go to the hard areas. They're going to be in on the forecheck. And like maybe that rubs off on Elias Lindholm a little bit. So I get the thinking. And I do think, like I said, I almost think like one of the most important things in here is they got to get Morgan Geekie going. Like, right. Like we spent a lot of time talking about Elias Lindholm and him needing to be better, and rightly so. But I mean, Morgan Geekie is still a top 10 scorer in the National Hockey League who has not looked like it for several weeks now since the Olympic break. Like, if you're going to make the playoffs and have any chance of doing damage, like you got to get Morgan Geekie back to looking like and playing like a high-end goal scorer.
Yeah, it's a great point, Scott. It really is, and it's worth bringing up. I feel like Geekie has had a bit of a pass as of late, and I just want to go back quickly. You bring up my boy's name, Husnudinov. I will just say, and I agree, Scott. It was the wrong play, but he was without his stick, so he was thinking I need to go. I'm worthless without my stick, and I do think for the most part, like players are, especially if you get hemmed in for quite some time. But it's, as you point out, Scott, is better than zero coverage. So a bit of a learning moment there for our boy Kuzi, but ultimately didn't cost the Bruins in the standings. Yes, you're right to bring up Geekie. I'm going to bring up somebody right now who I think is having a very underrated season, and that is Charlie McAvoy. Of course, Charlie he was a huge catalyst for the Bruins against Washington, scores both of the Bruins goals in regulation. By the way, that game as a whole, no goals by any forwards until Fraser Minton's ninth round shootout goal. But it was Matt Roy, Rasmus Sandin, and Charlie with the goals for both of their respective teams. But Charlie's had a very good year. It's been the best offensive season of his career. He has 9 goals, 40 assists, 49 points in 54 games. That ranks 10th in the NHL among defensemen in points scored. It also ranks 10th amongst NHL defensemen in points per game. He has played 26 games dating back to New Year's Eve when the Bruins snapped a 6-game losing streak to the Oilers. In those 26 games, he has registered a point in 23 of them. Over those 26 games, he has 8 goals, 22 assists, 30 points in his last 26 games. He's on a current 6-game point streak. He had a 9-game point streak prior to that was snapped by 1 game, and he gets right back on the train. So when you consider everything else that he does defensively and what he means to the team, now he's adding top 10 scorer among defensemen to his resume right now. I simply ask the question, locally, nationally, league-wide, is he having an underrated season? I think it's going to take more, unfortunately, for him to be a Norris-type finalist when you talk about what the landscape is now for that award and how it really does seem. And Scott, you can detail this for us and listeners because you are a part of these voting processes, but it really seems like to win a Norris these days, you have to be like a top 3, at least top 3-4 scorer among D-men, and then have some underlying analytics to back it. But I just think Charlie's been, one of, if not their best players all year when you consider everything that he does. And especially where the offense at 5-on-5 has kind of gone dry. Certainly since the Olympic break, I think he hasn't missed his stride at all. When you consider that he's had a gold medal in the middle of all this too, it certainly helps. But if we're talking Bruins, the gold medal is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree that it's probably a season that's flying under the radar a bit. As you mentioned, like I do have an awards vote, so I've started kind of putting together, not necessarily drilling down to like exactly what my voting order is going to be, but just kind of long lists to get an idea of like who's in the conversation and who I, really need to be focused on down the stretch. He's on my long list for the Norris. Like he's, so whatever you want to call that, like in consideration. Again, he's certainly not the favorite. He's not, I don't think he's going to be a finalist or anything like that. But like he's worth being in the discussion. I think if there's anyone out there who's just completely dismissing him or like not even looking his way, I don't think that's right. And and I guess for me, it's the way I kind of approach this is like I want to have like 10 to 15 names that I'm kind of like really honing in on to start, and then you whittle down from there. Like ultimately, we vote for 5 ranked in order. So I think if you're starting out at kind of 10 to 15 or even a few more than that, like that's probably a good place to be with a month to go. And McAvoy is in that larger conversation, at least for me.
And we can talk more about that too, because I'll do my opening shift first and then we can get back to it. But so my opening shift has to do with Swayman, and I know we wanted to have a trophy or award season conversation about him as well. But so in the shootout win, crazy how long it went. It goes 9 shooters. I would say Swayman has 6 saves and 3 posts, post saves as well. Kind of crazy how some of those, just didn't have the Capitals bounce, right? Like they could have went. Some of them got behind Swayman and just didn't go in. But so anyway, he doesn't allow anything on the shootout. And had a good game overall, guys. And Scott, I know you wanted to talk about how underrated his season probably has been, and maybe his spot in a conversation about the Vezina coming up as we are crazy enough nearing the end of the regular season kind of soon. So,
yeah, and oddly enough, with Swayman, I think like the betting odds actually have him in the right spot, and I just feel like, especially around Boston, maybe he's getting left out of this conversation, or like people just aren't seeing him that way. But Jeremy Swayman is actually 3rd in Vezina betting odds right now, behind only Andrei Vasilevsky and Ilya Sorokin. Now, to be clear, we, the writers, we don't vote on the Vezina. That is decided by NHL general managers. But like I think that's exactly where I would have him if I had a vote, is 3rd behind, and then the competition would be Vasilevsky versus Sorokin for the win. I kind of think if Sorokin gets the Islanders into the playoffs, which they're still firmly on the bubble right now, I might lean towards him, because I think he's been by far the biggest reason the Islanders have had any success. I also feel like Swayman's arguably been the biggest reason the Bruins are in the playoff chase right now. So, yeah, I mean, he's 3rd in goal save above expected. He, on Saturday, just outdueled one of the 2 guys ahead of him, Logan Thompson, who, probably deserves to be somewhere in the Vezina conversation, but won't be because his team's going to miss the playoffs. And that's, generally that's kind of just how it goes. But yeah, I mean, Swayman's been great since the Olympic break. And I thought this was a big game for him, because Thursday, I don't think they lost to San Jose because of Swayman, but it was his first kind of off game since the break. He gets a 3rd straight start Saturday. We've talked about this before. Like, how does he do when he starts 3 or 4 in a row? Well, in this case, he bounced back and was really good in Washington. I don't think there was much he could have done on either goal. Like I said, one gets deflected by his own teammate, and one Matt Roy has all day just to walk in and rip a shot past him. But other than that, he was really good. And then obviously did some of his best work in the shootout. You're right. Like a couple got behind him and hit the post, but I think it was Jerry Cheevers who famously said, if it hits the post, that's because I gave them nothing to shoot at.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's stick with Jeremy to start off here, if you guys don't mind. I wanna supplement your commentary there, Scott, with some further numbers. And I know you said you don't have a Vezina vote, but again, you are a voting member, and so you can help, take people into the psychology of what goes into these votes. So we can pretend that you did have a vote in terms of Vezina, looking at Swayman here, because there are certain numbers that you see of his, and you say, well, how's that a Vezina, candidate? But then there's other numbers where if you peel back the curtain a bit and you say, oh, okay, maybe that's how. So let's just go through some of these. And I think it's appropriate to start off with, he has faced the 4th most shots of any goalie in the league this year. So I think that's good to know the volume that he faces. It's not like he's out there facing no rubber with a very stout team in front of him defensively. He's seeing a lot of shots, the 4th most among any goalies this season. So it's worth mentioning that. Okay. With that said, he is 6th. Okay. All of these numbers are goalies with at least 35 plus games played. I did that because you're pretty much dwindling this down to mostly the starters, all the starters, and heavily used backups. With that said, among goalies with 35 plus games played, Jeremy Swayman is 16th in goals against average, 2.77. 16th in goals against. I can see somebody saying and rolling their eyes, well, that's a Vezina guy, huh? Okay, bear with me here. 10th in save percentage, same thing, right? Somebody could say, oh, 10th is top 10 barely, but not a Vezina guy. Okay, fair enough. As Scott said earlier, he's 3rd in goals save above expected, 21.8. He's 3rd in goals save above expected per 60, 0.502. He's 3rd in wins above replacement, 3.64. Scott, can you reiterate what that metric illustrates?
Wins above replacement. So essentially, like, if a replacement level goalie would be an NHL average goalie. So that tells you, like, essentially value wise, how many wins Swayman has been responsible for over a replacement level goalie.
He's 11th in low danger save percentage. He's 5th in medium danger save percentage. He's 13th in high danger save percentage. He has the 5th most wins of any goalie with 26. Overall, he's 26, 14, and 3. So basically, he's faced the 4th most shots of any goalie, and every single metric that you can list out of him, he is top half of the league and better. And of course, those vary from as high as 3rd in some categories to 16th, like goals against average. So you add all that together, and Bridget and Scott, you kind of get this interesting candidate where I can see why some would say, well, that's not a Vezina guy. But then I could see why some would say, yeah, it kind of is when you really look at it.
And also, we are in the last stretch, and we're talking about a team that, if he does play well, will make the playoffs, right? Like, the playoff picture, the Bruins playoff hopes of getting there in the first place hinge a lot on what he does. So it's going to be in your face for the last few weeks of the season, whether or not some of these guys are going to make the difference for their team. And I'm sure the actual time that the timeliness of good goaltending will factor in as well, not just the stats. Like, thinking about it, as Scott said, with the Islanders and Sorokin, like how much that means to their team for if they make the playoffs, and the same thing for the Bruins, because by no means are they safe to make the playoffs right now. They're currently in a playoff spot, but if there's a few bad goaltending performances, they might not be. So, and conversely, if there's solid goaltending till the end of the season, and that's one of the main reasons why you make the playoffs, I think that adds to the case as well.
Yeah, it's like the combination of all it's the quantity and the quality of chances faced. It's how much he's playing, which in today's NHL is the workload of a number one goalie. It's how much he's winning. Like, and yes, if the Bruins end up missing the playoffs and Swayman isn't quite on his game down the stretch, he's going to drop out. Like, then he's not going to be in the Vezina conversation. But right now they're in the playoffs. He's playing well, so he is like that. That matters because it's like you look around at. Okay, so here's the top 5 in goals saved above expected. It's 1 Ilya Sorokin, 2 Logan Thompson, 3 Jeremy Swayman, 4 Andrei Vasilevsky, 5 Igor Shesterkin. So 3 of those are currently in a playoff spot: Sorokin, Swayman, Vasilevsky. 2 aren't: Thompson and Shesterkin. And those guys deserve to be in the conversation, but like, with all due respect, not that it's entirely their fault, but because it's not. But like, making the playoffs does matter, and Thompson and Shesterkin will drop a bit in terms of the Vezina race because their teams aren't in the playoffs. And in Shesterkin's case, they've been out of the playoff picture for, I don't know what, 2 months now. Like, they haven't even been close. So he's just not playing like as high pressure games as some of these other guys. And then, like, you look at like the leaders in wins, which again, as you said, Brian, Swayman's top 5. It's 1, Andrei Vasilevsky. So again, like, he's checking both boxes. 2 is Karel Vejmelka of Utah, who is playing a lot. His underlying numbers aren't as great. His save percentage is under 900. 3 is Jake Ottinger. His save percentage is right at 900. We know he's on a loaded team. He's not being asked to do as much in terms of carrying his team to the playoffs. 4 is Lucas Dostal in Anaheim, who I think is being asked to do a lot, but has an 891 save percentage. Like, he's getting tested, but he's not holding up as well against that test as Swayman is, who has a 906 save percentage. Like, that's a 15-point difference. So yeah, again, it's like, it's just Swayman kind of has the total package of the resume here, where he's playing a lot, he's winning a lot. His basic stats are good. His advanced analytics are really good. I think he's 4th in high danger. Did he say 4th in high danger save percentage? Like, yeah, like it's all there. It's he's getting tested and he's taking goals off the board.
And before you guys that are listening get in the comments and say anything mean about Scott and him thinking that Swayman could be a Vezina candidate, just remember it's Scott's birthday, so we got to be nice to Scott in the comments today.
Everybody,
no, we're past my birthday. People can be mean again.
It was yesterday, right? It was yesterday.
Yeah.
Happy 40th.
Happy birthday, Scott, of course. Belated.
I told you, 25.
25. Something else I wanted to bring up about Swayman that you cannot quantify in his stats. Even if we wanted to have a weekly or monthly Swayman or fortune cookie segment on this show, we couldn't do it this year because he hasn't provided that. And I do think, and obviously I'm a bit tongue in cheek with that, but truly, when you look at him this year off the ice versus last year, remember last year we were kind of talking like, sometimes Jeremy just lead by example, just not keep your mouth shut, just don't be so out there with some of your quotes, especially when you're not really backing it up. Just be more, I don't know. I don't really know what we were, but this year he hasn't provided any bulletin board material for people in the media or certain contrarian radio hosts out there. He's just keeping his mind. He's giving short, concise answers. And I'm not saying to get rid of your personality altogether, but he hasn't been a distraction. That's what I'm trying to say. Off the ice, he hasn't provided any distraction material like at times last year there was. And so I just think he's been better on the ice. He's doing his job on the ice. He's being a quiet leader off the ice. And I have to say, like, this is the bounce back season in every element that we hope that you would have for a goaltender whose trade protection kicks in after this season. You've already committed to him for 7-8 years. And I know that not every metric he has is perfect. I know that he has his faults here and there. No player's perfect. And if you really want to pick apart certain things, go for it. But he's given the Bruins on and off the ice what his contract, indicates he should be.
Also, I think, Scott, do you remember this? Thinking back to Marco Sturm's opening press conference, he said that he wanted Swayman to not focus on doing like having a leadership role. Like basically he wanted Swayman to take a step back from that and not be part of it in that like it was putting too much pressure on him. He felt like he needed to do that stuff. And he basically said, "You're a goalie. You know, we need you to just show up and be your best in net and don't worry about taking over any of the um responsibilities of leadership." And so because of that, you don't get the comments after the game of trying to speak for the team or anything like that. He's kind of kept it more in his own lane, which has been good. I mean, is that part of the reason why he's had a better season than last year? Because he just doesn't feel quite as much pressure that he has to be the goalie and a leader once with the captain conversation going on. He doesn't seem to be, he's not brought up for it. It doesn't seem to be affected by any of that. And I don't know. I think that it was a Sturm philosophy that he told him right when he came in. We don't need you to do that. So just focus on your play.
Yeah, it's like, hey, goalies, just stay in your own little world. Like, which like I joke, but it's like that there is something to that because it is different. Like goalies aren't well, if you're backing up that game, you're on the bench, but even then, like you're sitting off to the side, so you're not right. Like you're not there on the bench, like between every shift during TV timeouts, like getting everyone pumped up. You're like you are by design, just kind of in your own little world. And yeah, it's tough. Some goalies can do it. Like there certainly have been goalies who are team leaders, but I'd say they're pretty few and far between. And for the most part, it's like it has to be a forward or a defenseman. So yeah, I think if that's been part of it, where Swayman has maybe not tried to do that because he's not being pressured to feel like he has to do that. Yeah, I think that's only a good thing.
Did you guys happen to see the article that, and I'm sorry if I get her name wrong, but is it Emily Benjamin?
Mm-hmm.
Did you happen to see the piece that she had on NHL.com where she had some sound bites from Charlie? She posted it, I want to say maybe yesterday, the day before, and I found it to be very interesting. And Charlie talked about he talked a lot about Marco Sturm and why the team resonates. I thought of this because Bridget, you mentioned Marco's comments about Jeremy to start the year, and Charlie talked about how Marco has just his directness and his honesty and his transparency has done wonders for the team. It makes the players want to play for him. It makes the players understand what's needed of them. And again, I don't have the article in front of me because I just thought of this right now. So I'll paraphrase, but there was a point in the article that I found interesting where Charlie was talking about the difference between Marco and some of his former coaches. Now, there was no specifying if he's talking about former NHL coaches or coaches from college or, other parts of his life. But he talked about where other coaches in the past it feels like they've told Charlie what they think Charlie wants to hear. And that just leads, as opposed to what he needs to hear, and how that's led to the players not knowing what's really demanded of them, what they need to do. And that Marco has done the opposite. He's direct, he's transparent, but also he's integrated this we mentality between himself and the players. This is what we need to do, not this is what you have to do. Like, we're in this together. And so I thought that article was interesting. And I think that sometimes we forget on this show and in the fan base and in the Bruins, realm, this is Marco's first year as a head coach at the NHL level, right? He's going through the grind of this season for the first time too. And I know sometimes we nitpick his decisions in a shootout lineup here or line combos there or a lack of a timeout here, but he's going through this for the first time too. And so I found that article to be very interesting.
Yeah, I did as well. And like we've heard we've heard some of it, even from McAvoy in particular, where he's talked about how, like, yeah, it did take us a little bit of time to kind of get used to Sturm's system and to get things down pat. And McAvoy opened up about that in this article where he says, I had a lot more run and gun in my game early. I was all over the place. He, meaning Sturm, was like, we could sit here and do this all day. It's fine. I will go over this with you until we find it where you fit in this. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of weird, interesting to hear that from McAvoy, who obviously is a team leader and is one of the best players, and he's acknowledging that, like, yeah, like, I kind of didn't really know how this system fit me or how I fit in this system. Obviously he's been in one system for a really long time now, his entire NHL career, whether it was Claude or actually he didn't even overlap with Claude, but Bruce and Montgomery, it's like they more or less had the same D system, in which you can take all the ways back to Claude. Sturm is doing something different, both D zone and neutral zone. So yeah, it's like you forget that, you kind of just assume, especially if you're an outsider and maybe aren't as familiar with like system changes, like you kind of just assume like, oh yeah, like everyone will get it. Like that they all know what each of these systems are. Like they'll pick it up. It's like, well, when you've been trained one way for, almost a decade, maybe it actually does take time. Like there are actually habits you have to break and new things you have to learn. And it was interesting to see these quotes from McAvoy, talking about like basically Sturm's patience of like, we'll keep going over this and until you get it, and like we'll figure it out, but like we're gonna get there.
Yeah, and it kind of explains some of the up and down nature of the beginning of the season, which was quite a wild ride of losing streaks, winning streaks, losing streaks. And it was while people were still trying to acclimate and all get on the same page within that system. So it does feel like we haven't seen, like, it's plateaued a bit. Like we haven't had the crazy drastic 6 wins in a row, 6 losses in a row, and that whole situation. So by this point in the season, they have seemed to figure it out. So we're well into the season, obviously. So nobody still really learning it, I wouldn't think. But I mean, when and if James Hagens comes in, he'll have to get used to it too, which could be part of his learning curve coming in. But I do still think they should bring him right into Boston. But
Yeah, it has been an up and down season early on, and long gone are the days, Bridget. Didn't Scott at one point say back in like December, oh, the Bruins have to go at least, 3-1-1 on this road trip or they'll miss the
isn't that
playoffs?
you?
What? Oh, that was me? Oh, I'm sorry, Scott. I didn't mean to throw that on you. Yeah. I can't believe I said that.
On his birthday? No
On his
less?
birthday, no less. Yeah, no, it does seem, though, I will say there are some players, and this is not indicative of Marco, but there are some players that seem to kind of be stagnant right now. We've talked about Lindholm. We've talked about Morgan Geekie. What about Nikita Zadorov? Because he's a guy that was playing great all year. I think he's had a slow build back since the Olympic break concluded. I think he's getting closer and closer to where he left off. But you know what, guys? I don't like him with Peak. And a lot of the year he was playing with McAvoy or Aspro at times or Yoki Haru and Peak, right? But I don't know. Is Andrew Peak helping get the best out of Zadorov right now? Do you have no issue with that pair? Because I do think that it's important. I think we haven't talked about Nikita enough lately. Again, he's been kind of under the radar, but I do think he's a huge part to their success too. Him, when he's on his game, I think that the Bruins are a much meaner team. I think they're a more physically imposing team. He can also get into the Russian transition. And I just feel like right now they're missing the best of Nikita that they had, honestly, for a lot of the first half of the season. And as they gear up towards the postseason here, hopefully, I can't help but think that they need him going. And so now my question is to myself and to you guys and everybody listening, like, so who's that guy that they should put him with to maybe help get that out of him as well?
Yeah, I think you've started to see some signs of him getting going a little bit. He's landed some good hits the last couple of games. Like that's one way for him to get more engaged. He's transported the puck through the neutral zone a few times and kind of gotten that, hey, look, he doesn't have the quick burst, but when he gets up to speed, he can get going. Like you've seen a couple times now recently where he's been able to do that. So I think though he's blasted a couple slap shots from the point. So like I think those are all things that can get him more involved, and maybe that just helps his all around game start to get back on track. I do think so after Friday's practice, after I asked Sturm about, the forward lines, I also asked him about Jordan Harris and Henry Jokiharju and whether there will be any effort to try to get them into games. And Sturm said yeah, there's going to be at some point soon. He, obviously wasn't going to give any details, but the reason I asked is because in my mind, giving Peak a couple games on the bench would be well within reason. I don't think he's been playing especially well since the Olympics either. So that feels like a natural place to, if you want to keep guys involved, which Sturm claims he does. Jokiharju's barely played since the Olympics. Jordan Harris got one game where I actually thought he looked pretty good considering it was his first game since November. And then he's been back out of the lineup since. I feel like that's a natural spot to get someone in. So whether that's with Zadorov or, maybe it's part of a bigger lineup shuffling, maybe Zadorov goes up with McAvoy and it's Aspero and whoever on the third pair. I think that would be an option, but I do feel like that's kind of the next thing that Sturm could shake up a little bit. Obviously, as we've learned with the forward changes, he's pretty patient and he likes to give guys a chance to work through things, but he's not going to cut them infinite slack. Eventually he is going to make changes. So I wonder if we see that on defense at some point here.
It also, I think, just makes sense to get Jokiharju back in at some point soon, just to not be out of the lineup for an extremely long stretch. And especially when they've been talking about, defensive depth, but without adding anyone from the outside, you probably want to have your guys at least rotating a little bit to make sure everybody's going. And also when Jokiharju came back from the Olympics, he looked better. I think we had all talked about how he looked better than he had before he went. So, maybe give him another chance because he was, playing better or looking like he could help you out a little bit. So, definitely no reason to keep him out extendedly. Is that a word?
Extensively?
I think I said extendedly. I don't think that's a word, but whatever.
Yeah, that's what I think. Is it extensively? Is that the word you're looking for?
No.
Scott, you're the writer. Is that the word?
No, he's the one who said.
I would just say for an extended amount of time.
All right. Maybe Harris gets in against Montreal, former team, right? Who knows? But maybe this is a good time to transition to something you guys wanted to touch on, which is the standings, right? And you have Montreal, who you're 2 points back of for third in the Atlantic. You did leapfrog Detroit. You're wild card one, same amount of points, but better points percentage if you're Boston. Columbus is still nipping at the ankles of everybody above them. So it goes without saying. You have New Jersey on Monday night tonight. That's a game that if you're the Bruins, you should win that game. New Jersey has been struggling for the most part this year, and then on Tuesday, if you win against the Devils tonight, guys, is Montreal playing tonight? I meant to look this up before we started recording.
No, that they're off. They had a back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. Lost both in regulation.
So because of those losses and the fact that they're not playing tonight, if the Bruins get 2 points tonight, you enter Montreal on Tuesday, even with Montreal in points, and third place in the Atlantic is on the line. Kind of similar a little bit to earlier in the year in November when they entered Montreal with first place in the Atlantic on the line. So, yeah, guys, take it away with the standings and just the meaningfulness to these games, obviously.
They do. So if you are wondering what other games you want to watch as a Bruins fan, you're rooting for the Flames right now Detroit plays at home against Calgary tonight. So that's a team that's tied with you in the standings currently. So rooting against them the rest of the way is probably what you want to do as a Bruins fan. But other than that, yeah, like Columbus isn't in action tonight.
Pittsburgh's in Colorado, so root for the Avs.
Yeah, root for the Avs on that one because Pittsburgh's only 1 point ahead of you. So are the Islanders. And like Brian said, Montreal's just 2 points in front of you. And you got to stave off the guys behind you too, because there's a few teams that are only within 3 points of you. The Senators are 3 points behind. The Blue Jackets are 1 point behind. So it's an insane race right now.
Yeah, the name of the game here is put as many teams between you and the cut line as possible. So amazingly, this is the first time the Bruins have been out of the second wildcard spot since February 1st. So for a month and a half, and obviously there's the Olympic break in there, but for a month and a half, they were in the second wildcard spot every single morning. Didn't go up or down, even though they were always tight to teams around them. Every single morning, they woke up in the second wildcard spot. Now, Sunday morning and Monday morning, they wake up in the first wildcard spot. So there's now one team between you and the cut line. If you can get ahead of Montreal or Pittsburgh or both Islanders, like there's more. And technically, they are ahead of the Islanders on points percentage, just barely, because Islanders have one more point, but have also played one more game. So you want, if Columbus does pick someone off, you'd rather it be Pittsburgh or the Islanders, right? Like, don't have it be you. By the way, Ottawa also making a charge here. 7-1-2 in their last 10. So they're at 77 points, 3 points out of a playoff spot. So again, like the more teams you can put between yourselves and them, the better. So you have a chance to. New Jersey's huge. Obviously, you got to win these games against the teams that are out of it. But then Montreal and Detroit, like just massive head-to-head games. And Thursday at home against Winnipeg, like another one you just got to win. Winnipeg really struggling this year. So, yeah, I mean, like obviously we know every game at this point is huge, but it is amazing. It's like every night there's just massive games that are swinging someone one way or the other in this race.
And by the way, if you were to beat New Jersey and Montreal, you'd pass Montreal and you'd go into the third spot in the Atlantic because they're off tonight, like we were saying. So, and if you beat Detroit, you're still technically points wise, they both have 80 points. So you'd go past them by points and points percentage. They already are in front of them. That's hence why they're in the wild card one spot. But yeah, like head to head, those games are just going to be so important. And I really wanted to go to that Montreal game, so I'm still bummed out that we're not going. Scott and I said that if Hagens was going to join the team at some point, maybe we would go to one of these games in New Jersey or Montreal, but alas.
Alas, that's a great use of alas. Like that's just it's not used enough. It needs to be used more.
It's for the drama.
Go Bridget, go. Way to use that one.
Also, one other thing, beating New Jersey also sneaky big because you want to keep New Jersey below Toronto as well. You know, if not that it's the most important thing because playoff race is more important, but monitoring where Toronto finishes also worth keeping in mind. And New Jersey is one of the teams below them right now.
Well, I mean, for that reason, I wouldn't hate to see the Bruins win on Tuesday in overtime against Toronto. Let Toronto get the loser point. Get the 2 points of your Boston.
Next week, yeah.
You know, something else to come from that Washington game too. And because Scott, you mentioned how there was and maybe you said this, so forgive me if I spaced it, but did you mention that it was their first road win in nearly 2 months? I know you wrote about it.
Yeah, we might have just like briefly touched on that. I don't remember what we said 30 minutes ago, but
it wasn't like 2 minutes ago you said it. No, I thought you maybe said it like 5 minutes ago. Okay, yeah. I mean, touch on that because that is something that, again, it's something minor, right? It's a 9-round shootout, and you look at it, and Thompson's playing great, and Swayman's playing great. And as you're watching on the couch with your Doritos, you're like, you know what? If the Bruins can't win this game, it is what it is. But you know what? the fact that they did find a way to get those 2 points, it can go a long way psychologically to the rest of this road trip. Sometimes when you're in a slump like that, it starts to become, bigger than it should be. And maybe that Minton goal in the 9th round actually is more than just getting that second point. It can help propel them on the rest of this road trip and going forward. Maybe we'll see. If they go back to their old ways, then no, but they have an opportunity here.
To quote Nikita, can I just quote Nikita Zadorov after the home loss? Good teams don't lose 2 in a row. That's what he said. So,
yep.
Yeah, and like they definitely needed, obviously, like they needed to snap that road losing streak. It was funny hearing. So I think it was Kevin Paul Dupont who kind of like asked a couple players. I think he asked both Swayman and McAvoy after the game and put it in the terms of it being almost 2 months since they had won on the road. January 17th was the last road game, and like both Swayman and McAvoy were like, "Is that true? Like, was it really that long?" And it's like, well, yeah, like obviously there was an Olympic break. They've had way more home games than road games during that stretch. So like it ultimately makes sense where it's like, yeah, it's a 7-game losing streak on the road, but it lasted for 2 months. And I will say, like, I kept getting the sense that the players and even Sturm weren't as worried about it because other than like the Nashville game, they were in pretty much all of these games. It's like I was just pulling it up here, but like Pittsburgh overtime. And obviously that's one they should have won. They, were up 3-0. Philly, they played well but lost. Florida and Tampa both in the shootout. Rangers was an overtime. Like, so they were in. So like I don't think they felt like, oh, we're going on the road and just getting our ass kicked. It's like, oh, we're playing really competitive games and like just coming up short, which is still a loss. So you still have to like snap out of that. So getting the win is huge, but because you just have to build confidence, and because they have so many road games down the stretch, it's like you got to get guys at least believing / knowing that they can actually do it and like not just be competitive and get to overtime, but actually get 2 points.
Yeah, it also they had just broken their home win streak, but just had ended, and now the away losing streak ends. So flip-flopped it this week. But yeah, I think another thing that Nikita Zadorov said was they just need to play more simple on the road than they have been. They're making it too complicated for themselves. And I mean, I guess in terms of the psychology of it, you say to yourself, well, we did get the 2 points. We did figure it out. I don't know where this ranks for you guys in terms of their wins, though. Like, did you feel like this is a game they should have won in regulation, lost in regulation? Like, at what point did you think that this was going to be a 2-point night?
I didn't think it would be a 2-point night until it was. Like, I thought that, the Capitals, I didn't like the Bruins first period. They haven't been great 5-on-5. The power play hasn't been great either. I do think as regulation concluded, I think you could say the Bruins carried the majority of the play, maybe minorly to a split. I thought Washington played a decent game, and Washington's they're a formidable opponent. I think they're not in the playoff picture, so you can simplify it and say, well, they're not a playoff team, so you got to beat them, and that's fair. But I think Washington is, of course, capable of beating Boston. So I think that was a very big win for the Bruins. I don't think the 2 points was guaranteed. I was sitting there, Bridget, just saying, just find a way to get 2. Like, I don't care how it happens, regulation, overtime, street hockey in the back of the parking lot after I don't care. Just find a way to get 2 points. And, I found myself continuing to be very frustrated. You talk about, Bridget, simplifying the game and not overthinking. One area where they continue to fail at simplifying is the power play. And that 5-on-3, that extended 5-on-3 was embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing.
That's where I thought they were losing the game.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. So they got to listen. I'm glad they got the 2 points. I'm glad that they leapfrogged Detroit and they're in the playoffs. But man, thank God Charlie McAvoy and Jeremy Swayman came to play. And thank God the second line continues to be the engine that drives this team in terms of the offensive lines. And I know David Pastrnak, Scott, you put this out there in the ether last game, but he has 7 points in his last 5 games. And he's still been off. So that's the good news. Even when David Pastrnak is off, he's still producing at a point per game clip. So that's good to know. But the Bruins at 5-on-5 need to have more up and down their lineup, and their special teams, their power play needs to improve, because you know what? You look at the standings right now, and Bridget just mentioned in the group chat that Melvin, who's our periodic fourth host, has the Zoomies upstairs. I wish the Bruins had the Zoomies in the power play.
I had to mute my mic because it was just going.
But listen, if you look at the power play rankings league wide, and you see Boston's ranked 8th, and you didn't tell it, we had no context, right? And this is back in the off season, and we teleported to March, and we said, oh wow, Boston is the 8th ranked power play in the league. That's found money. But you add the context, they've been top 5 all year, oftentimes top 4, top 3. They've slipped down to 8th now. And that's because the power play has been struggling mightily since the Olympic break. And, I'm glad they're in a playoff position, and I'm glad some of their key players are driving them, but they need to find more balance at 5-on-5, and they have to start capitalizing on the power play.
Yeah. I mean, we also talked about last episode, their shorthanded goals against numbers are, you got to factor that into where the power play is at too. And it's not good. So it just has looked bad too, guys. Like, the decision-making has looked hesitant, and like second guessing has led to turnovers at the blue line. And just, I don't know. It just, sometimes once you're in your head, and you're worrying about things that you kind of almost make a reality by worrying about them. But yeah, it's been tough to watch those power plays, and I don't know how much you can, attribute to personnel, or just it seems more of an execution issue. I don't really know if you're changing anybody off those units or putting anybody on. I mean, I guess technically if Hagens comes in, maybe you give him a little bit of a chance on the power play. He's a good power play scorer. But other than that, I don't really know how much personnel changing is going to affect what the outcome has been recently.
Yeah, and it's the same guys, right? Like, it's the same guys who are now struggling on the power play and quiet 5-on-5, and like specifically Pastrnak, Geeky, Elias Lindholm. And it's like, now it's like a chicken or the egg thing, where it's like, are they struggling on the power play because they're not producing 5-on-5 and they're putting more pressure on themselves, or is it all going hand in hand because they're just struggling, period? Like, to me, that's what it is. It's like, I just think you need those 3 guys specifically just need to be better. And McAvoy also had a bad pass on that 5-on-3 behind Geeky that led to one of the clears. So for power play purposes, like, put him in there as well. Yeah, I mean, to start that 5-on-3, it's like they lose the face off, which, like, 5-on-3, like, Elias Lindholm loses that face off cleanly, which you just don't see. So it's like, I can't get worked up about Elias Lindholm losing faceoffs, because even when he's struggling, that's usually his strength. But loses it cleanly, which you really can't have on a 5-on-3. The Capitals are rimming around. Pastrnak actually keeps it in, but then immediately gives it away. And it's just like the lack of composure there of like, all right, okay, you didn't immediately get to your set, but you just kept it in. Like, now settle down, take a deep breath, and like, get going. And instead, Pastrnak gets to the boards, keeps it in, and then panics and gives it away. And it's like, that just like sets the tone for those 39 seconds. It gets cleared down. And it's just like, why did that happen? Like, why are you panicking there? It's a 5-on-3. Like, you did the hard part. You kept it in. Just like, take a deep breath, settle down. But right now, like, they're not doing that. They just like very jittery across the board on the power play, where it's like, whoever it is, it's like all of them. It's like they get the puck in their stick, and it's like, oh my god, what am I doing? And it's like, that's not what you do.
So give me your thoughts on David, because he's obviously, leading the team in scoring. As I said a minute ago, and Scott, you tweeted out, that's where I saw it. That's where I first learned about it. But yeah, he still has, a 5-game point streak, 7 points in his last 5. But anybody with a pair of eyes knows that he's not playing to his capabilities. The fact that he's still producing in the meantime is impressive. You see a lot of people saying, well, he's definitely dealing with something. He's definitely injured, this, that, the other thing. I'm not here to say he's not dealing with something. He may be. On a lot of guys this time of year, right? And so it's like, if that's the case, well, you still got 15 games left. You still got a hopeful playoff run. I mean, what's your read on it? Is it as simple as that? I think it's a comp. I think when top players, but again, he is scoring, but he's not scoring. David Pastrnak is so good that just producing points isn't necessarily going to satisfy him all the time. I think he wants to score points in a way that he wants to score them. You know what I mean? Like that, there are certain players that are so good that they can not just score, but they can score how they want. And I think that when you're not scoring with the same emphasis and execution that you're accustomed to, you know it. You know what you're capable of. And so look at that. Look at this assist against the Capitals last night. It's a perfect example. Okay. David Pastrnak scores an assist on Charlie McAvoy's first goal of the game. The record books will say primary assist, David Pastrnak. 5-game point streak continues. He's on the scoreboard. That pass by David was in Charlie's skates, and it happened to work out for the better because it turned into a knuckle puck slap shot through traffic. But that's not where Pastrnak meant to land that pass for Charlie for a one-timer. So that to me was a microcosm of, hey, he got a point on the play, but it wasn't what he wanted to do. And so what's your guys' read on him right now?
Yeah, and like if you go back the 2 points against San Jose, like the first one is a pass kind of into traffic that Fraser Minton just whacks off a defenseman's skating in. And then the second one, like, yeah, I'm sure hammering a one-timer feels good, but it's garbage time. The Bruins were down 4-0 prior to that. The one-timer gets it to 4-2, but like, I don't think David Pastrnak's feeling great about those 2 points either, even though they count, towards this point total all the same. So yeah, like there's, I mean, look, obviously having a newborn at home and going through all that, I think is a factor here. Like just these are human beings, and I have not had a kid, so I don't know this, but seeing friends or like my sister, have kids within the last couple of years, like, yeah, it's like that's a really stressful time, and you don't get sleep after. And I know these guys have help at home and like usually parents in town and nannies or whatever, like, but like it's still it does take a toll. It affects them, like, of course it does. But I would hope, like, my hope would be that getting out on the road for these 3 games, maybe that like kind of snaps Pastrnak out of that, right? Because go on the road, you're not dealing with newborn. Like, you get to just sleep in team hotel and hopefully get a good night's sleep. So we'll see. Maybe these next 2 games get him out of it. As far as dealing with something, like, there might be, but as you said, a lot of guys are dealing with something. And Sturm even made a comment a couple days ago, I don't know, sometime last week, where he was like, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but he basically said, like, knock on wood, we're pretty healthy right now. And obviously that can mean like they don't have guys out of the lineup, which is one part of it. But I also think he meant like no one's dealing with anything that's like severely hindering their game. Guys are battling stuff. Like, I'm sure Pastrnak is. I know Elias Lindholm is. He had that injury before the break. And when I talked to him, he said like he's still getting treatment for it and dealing with that. But you're playing, and you're playing big minutes. So can't really be too much of an excuse.
And I think Zacha probably still a little bit lingering potentially from his injury that kept him out of the Olympics. That was a recent...
I mean, you would hope not, right? Like,
hope not,
if concussion symptoms are lingering, like that's That's a bigger issue.
I don't know if you have had concussions, Scott, or teammates that have had concussions. They linger. I mean, like subtly, but they linger. A lot of them do. Like I said, some days you're fine, some days you're not. It kind of comes and goes at times. So they do linger in a way. And I'm sure if you asked Mark Kaslik about it, he would say so. But
Mark Kaslik missed time. Like NHL concussion protocol is strict. Like you can try to hide it, but like if you're showing symptoms, like they're gonna pull you out of games again.
I think you might be missing what I'm saying, but like it's subtle stuff. And also certain times you're affected by it and certain times you're not. Like it's cyclical a little bit. But yeah.
Well, Bridget, you mentioned the Olympics with Zaka. Something else that popped into my head too is a comment Marco Sturm said recently, which is David was dealing with a lot of pressure of playing for Czechia in the Olympics, and that I was actually kind of surprised to hear that. Like, yeah, it was kind of, I don't know if it was out of the blue. I think Sturm was asked about David, but I didn't really think about the pressure he felt as being the guy for representing Czechia in the Olympics and being their flag bearer and all that stuff. So, you add the pressure of the Olympics. If I mean, again, that's Marco Sturm saying that, not me making it up. And, Scott, you mentioned the human element of the, him and his wife expanding their family. And then obviously if he's dealing with something injury wise, and then you're also just battling confidence, all those factors probably tie in. So what's the solution? Probably just time and stick-to-itiveness, right? And I'm sure a player of his caliber, he'll start to find the back of the net in ways that he deems is more like his skill set constitutes. Are there any final thoughts from the two of you before we sign out today?
I have one, because the Bruins, as we're recording, Bruins just hit the ice for morning skate in Jersey, and Bell Fraser, team reporter for the Bruins, tweeted out lines in morning skate.
Ooh.
And I think I think like each of us is getting a wish or two here. So first line, Husnudinov, Minton, Pasternak, kid line together. Second line the same, Middlestad, Zaka, Arvidsson. Third line, Steves, Lindholm, Geeky. So a little bit of a different combination there. Already going away from what he tried last game. Fourth line back together, Janot, Corrali, Kastelik, Asimont, 13th forward. On D, Aspero, McAvoy, Lindholm, Lohrei, Zadorov, Yoki Haru. So it looks like Yoki Haru getting back in.
Mm-hmm.
And then Harris Peak as the fourth pair.
Yeah. I mean, that's the forward lineup that they finished San Jose with. So, I had mentioned to you guys, not only did I think Minton, Husnudinov, and Pasternak looked good in those final 10 minutes, I thought Geeky and Lindholm and Steves looked well in the final 10 minutes of that game too. Like, there was something about splitting up Pasternak and Lindholm. Both look great without the other. So now what this doesn't address, Scott, which is something you mentioned earlier, is giving Geeky Pasternak to help him be maybe that's the best way to get Geeky going. You know what? Sounds like Marco Sturm is telling Morgan, you're on your own, pal. Figure it out yourself. You're a top guy. Produce your own offense here. I don't know.
Well, let's not forget that the best stretch of the season for Geeky was that not when he was with Steves as well?
Yeah, it was when Pasternak was out. Yeah, and that line was Geeky, Lindholm, Steves.
And that's when Steves was on his, was it like 5-game goal streak or whatever?
Earned him a contract.
Yeah, and Steves obviously went really quiet for a long time after that. But I do also like getting Steves back in, because I think I might have briefly mentioned this Friday, but I was actually a little surprised that he was the forward who came out of the lineup for Saturday, because I did think he looked much more active Thursday in that San Jose game. He had a game high 7 hits. Like, he was in on the forecheck and doing some of the things that made him effective earlier in the season. So, I can't say I've been blown away by Asimont's play recently. So I like giving Steves another chance here.
I think Asimont's defensive play is better and Steve's offensive play is better. So maybe it has to do with matchup stuff, but
Asimont lead off hitter in the shootout on Saturday.
Yeah.
Which I didn't mind, by the way, because we've seen Asimon actually score some breakaway goals this year.
Yeah, he's got some hands on him. He you know, he's not. I don't hold my breath with him going like I did Andrew Peak that time. That was just that was a head scratcher.
Couldn't help but notice Peak did not make the starting 9 this time.
Shocking.
Not this
Hey, final installment.
Yep.
We think.
Have you guys been watching the World Baseball Classic?
Here and there, yeah, I've been checking it out.
Man, I'm so into this. Like, I don't know if it's just like kind of the Olympic rub off of, you know, just being into like international competition, but it's been awesome, man. Like, these games have been incredible. US got a big win over the Dominican Republic in the semifinals Sunday night. Incredible atmosphere. So now they'll be in the championship on Tuesday against either Venezuela or Italy, who's been the big surprise of the whole tournament.
Italy already beat them.
Yeah, Italy already beat the US. It's like the American JV team. Like, that they're all Italian Americans. They're not actually from Italy. But still an underdog story. So
what about the Czechia team, Scott? I was surprised to see Czechia had a team.
Yeah, so they got knocked out in the group stage, but they had kind of their moment in the sun. So they started in the same group as Japan and played over in Japan. And one of their pitchers, I forget his name, but he has like a full-time job in a completely unrelated field back in Czech, but struck out Ohtani and like actually kept this incredible Japanese lineup in Czech. And as he walked off, the Tokyo Dome gave him a standing ovation. Like,
that
was
cool.
It was like a really awesome moment.
That's really cool.
Yeah, he's just like a restaurant owner or something. He's just like some guy who's I don't know.
That's crazy.
Also, in the spirit of international competition, USA sled hockey beat Canada for gold yesterday. So
clean sweep.
3 for 3 hockey gold medals over Canada.
Yep. Clean sweep. Can't claim World Juniors. Got to give your tip of the cap to was it Sweden? Sweden won this past season?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, final installment of the regular season between the Bruins and the Canadiens on Tuesday. Maybe we get them in the playoffs. Maybe, but what are you looking forward to in this final meeting between the two of them? And what do you think this season has done for the Bruins Canadiens rivalry? You think it's taken a step in the right direction, reigniting it? I think it definitely has.
Definitely. It definitely feels like it's on the way back. Like, obviously it's still not, you need playoff matchups to get back to where it was, you know, call it in the 2000s into the early 2010s. But definitely taking a step in the right direction this season. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Like Bridget, I'm bummed I'm not going, but had to, just for like my own schedule and budget and all that, like, had to make some cuts somewhere. So this just, and it stinks that it's a back-to-back, because as Bridget can attest to, like, the best part of a Montreal trip is the night before, but like the Bruins are playing a game tonight. So like they're not even there yet.
We go on a brewery tour the way before. So that's what we do. It's more fun. Yes. And then we have to work, and then we normally go out after, but yeah.
How many beers did you two drink in that beer tower that time? What did that hold?
I don't know, but it's definitely supposed to be for more than 2 people.
Yeah, I think I feel like we did the math at the time, and I don't.
It was
remember.
Like 4 each, something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think it was like 8 to 10.
Wow.
And
that was aggressive.
It got a little harder than it hit me. And it was his birthday though, so it's fine. The trip always falls right on his birthday. I brought him a birthday crown and everything.
Wow, that's ironic. All right, I'm good. You guys good?
I'm
good.
good.
I just want to say shout out to the Northeastern women who are going to the Frozen Four.
Oh yeah,
they beat Minnesota. They were up 4-0 on Minnesota, a team that just absolutely steamrolled BC and BU earlier this year. I broadcasted to at BU, and it has Abby Murphy, and we're talking about Olympians. A lot of the women Olympians are in the Frozen Four. But yeah, Minnesota's a good team, and she's their best player. She's potentially going to go first overall in the PWHL draft. Northeastern actually pretty handily beat a very good Minnesota team. They're going on to the Frozen Four, but they have to play Ohio State, which is the number 1 team. So that's not going to be easy, but shout out to them. They made it. UConn won their first game against Princeton, lost their game against Penn State. So
I meant to comment to you guys. That is an interesting dynamic that takes place in the women's Olympics, right? Like you had a melting pot of NCAA players and pro players in the same roster. That's like I've never seen that before, right? I mean, you saw it like, a little bit. I think maybe I mean I think it's probably always been the case, Bridget, for women's. That dynamic always been the case?
Yes, but it's been more so this past year for sure, or this Olympics. I feel like just because where the development is right now, like some of the younger players were actually some of the US's best players.
Yeah.
And not just the US too, like BU had 2 players, the Welkies, who went and played for Germany, and Alessia Beckler is back playing for Northeastern now after she just won bronze with Switzerland. So I just think that the caliber of the younger players has gotten better and better. So this was kind of more, and they used to pre-PWHL, they used to centralize for like a whole year. So you couldn't do that if you were in college. So like they just weren't on the team as much, but
exactly. Yeah. So okay, but there was a league before the PWHL. There was a pro league before that, right? Like the Boston Pride were in.
Yeah, PHF.
Yeah. So I just found it to be cool. Like you have someone who's playing for Northeastern in the NCAA, passing to somebody who plays for Seattle or Toronto of the like that. That's a cool dynamic. That was interesting to me, and I meant to comment on that. Anyway, so definitely watch that.
A lot of them are still playing. Tessa Janicki plays for Penn State. She's still in it. Layla Edwards is still in it. Kaylin Harvey. So still a lot of those players are going to be going to the Frozen Four. But Northeastern, they lost the championship game to UConn in overtime, and then they were able to make a deeper run though in the tournament so far. They've never won. So no Hockey East women's team has ever won the title. There have been several runner-ups and several Frozen Fours, but they've never won the championship. So I don't know. Maybe we see it, but they have to play Ohio State, so that could be easy.
Also, speaking of women's hockey in the PWHL, shout out to the Fleet. Speaking of Boston-Montreal rivalry, they were down 3-0 to Montreal Sunday, came back and won in overtime. That was a battle for first place in the league. So I was watching that Sunday afternoon too. That was a great game.
Well, you had the Oscars, Scott. You had World Baseball Classic.
It was a great sports day.
March Madness is coming up too, right? So that's
I started filling out my bracket a few minutes before the podcast. I'll spend a few more minutes on, and that's all I'm doing for homework. So.
I'm not. I don't think I'm doing one this year. I used to do really well at it when I used to work at IMG, Learfield IMG, in the middle of all of I worked in college basketball, and all of my friends were that's all they wanted to talk about. And we're literally covering college basketball, pretty much every team in the country. So I used to be good at it. I took home a few when I worked there. And then ever since then, I just don't pay enough attention. And I just end up people just take my money, basically. I mean, I'm essentially just handing them my money and just I'll never see that again.
Yeah.
I had never won forever. So I thought maybe at some point I'll just stop doing it. And then a couple years ago, I actually won one of my bracket pools. So I think that gave me the false confidence to keep doing it every year. And I'll probably never win again. But
in 2018, I won 2 separate ones, and I won $700. But ever since then, not close.
So how do you win those brackets? Because there's no way you get nobody gets a perfect bracket. So it comes down to who's the least wrong. Is that essentially what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you get points by round, and the further you go, the deeper rounds are worth more points.
Okay.
So getting the champion correct is the most important thing, but normally whoever wins probably gets the champion right. But in theory, you could get enough right before then that maybe you'd still win without it. But
has there ever been a perfect bracket?
I don't think there's ever been from anyone.
I don't think there ever will be.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
like-
odds are just so astronomically low that I don't even think that there ever will be a perfect bracket. But
I remember, I'm going to say maybe this was like a decade ago, because I remember like the guy was like on Sports Center. There was someone who had like a perfect bracket going into the Final Four, and then I think lost it. But
wow.
it was like the furthest anyone had ever gone on like on an ESPN platform or something.
Interesting.
isn't there like a massive prize if you do? Like it's like multi-million dollars if you somehow do it. But that the reason is because
Yeah.
it's pretty much impossible. So people are like, I'm gonna do it. It's like mathematically really doesn't seem like you probably are, but
Well, good
I
luck
don't
to
think I'll
everybody.
be wasting my money this year.
I'm gonna do it this year. I'm feeling it.
Okay,
You're
so
gonna be the
have
guy.
perfect bracket. What are you gonna let? You can let Melvin choose your bracket if you want. Like we'll just like hold up 2 pictures and see which one he likes or something. But
25 is Scott's year, Bridget. So
Oh, yeah.
it's
Right.
the year of
You're-
Scott.
the year of the Scott.
The year of the Scott. Alrighty. Thank you all very much for listening. Enjoy Bruins Devils tonight. Enjoy Bruins Canadians on Tuesday night.
Enjoy
And
St.
we will-
Patrick's Day.
Enjoy St. Patrick's Day. That's Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Yeah, okay. And we'll be back here on Wednesday to talk to you. Take care. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.